When it comes to electronics, and particularly devices like computers and laptops, it's common knowledge that buying used hardware is often a better value. After all, my whole channel is based around buying, upgrading, and using older laptops such as ThinkPads, and many of my most viewed videos are about models that are a good value for people on a budget. However, some people don't feel comfortable with buying used hardware for one of many reasons, and sometimes their concerns are valid. Despite this, I'm not sold on the idea that budget-oriented laptops are a good value. What exactly is a budget laptop? In my eyes, it's any of the cheaper laptops you'll find in the big box stores such as Walmart, Target, or Best Buy, as well as on sites like Amazon. These are usually the cheapest of the cheap as far as laptops are concerned, priced somewhere between $200 and $300. Sometimes if you're lucky, there will be a sale going on and you can find one for even less. Pretty much all of these have similar hardware specifications regarding the processor, RAM, storage, etc., so my opinion for one model can generally be applied to the rest. All of these will probably come with Windows 11, but there are also budget laptops in this price range using Chrome OS instead. I plan on using one of these devices alongside my usual ThinkPad daily driver for several weeks, with the idea being to get some work done, have a little fun, and also type this video script on it. Let's buy one and find out what it can do. For this video, I decided to buy an Asus E210M laptop. It was discounted and I found the small size of it rather amusing compared to other options in this price range. The specs of this laptop are more or less the same as other budget models I saw at the store, so I expect performance to be the same regardless of which model you choose. In the box we don't get much, just the laptop, the small power adapter with a typical barrel-style plug, and a few pieces of paperwork. On the laptop we have a small handful of ports, including the power input, 2 USB 3.1 ports, a USB Type-C port, HDMI, and a headphone jack. I've seen a handful of these laptops with microSD card readers, and it looks like this laptop's motherboard has a provision for it, but it was omitted from this version. Aside from that, there isn't very much on this laptop, not even ventilation as it uses a fanless design. Opening up the laptop, there is an 11-inch 1366x768 TN panel, a small but usable keyboard, as well as a touchpad with a built-in numeric keypad. I can at least say the layout isn't too wonky and the keyboard wasn't horrible to type on. However, it's nowhere near as good as something like a ThinkPad keyboard, and some of the keys didn't work correctly. The typing experience was a little uncomfortable for my larger hands, and I developed cramps and even blisters after extended typing sessions. The numeric keypad function is pretty interesting and worked well enough, but sometimes I accidentally turned it on, or I couldn't get it to work when I was trying to. The touchpad as a whole isn't very good, and I had a few occasions where the touchpad was unresponsive, but it does get the job done, and for how cheap this laptop is, I can't expect more out of it. The display is your typical low-quality TN panel. Usable, but definitely not providing any sort of color fidelity. Viewing angles are almost non-existent, and the colors and contrast leave a lot to be desired. I could say more, but these are the sort of things to expect when getting a budget laptop. Also to be expected with something this cheap is an all-plastic chassis, but at the very least it's easy to remove the bottom cover and access the internals. Most of these budget laptops use an Intel Celeron N4020 processor or something similar, equipped with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of eMMC storage. Obviously there are no dedicated graphics, with the integrated UHD 600 graphics providing any video power you demand from this thing. While the low power consumption of the Celeron chips found in these machines allow for a fanless design and respectable battery life, it does make actually using the laptop for everyday use a bit of a hassle. When trying to run some benchmarks, Cinebench managed to crash the system, so we're already off to a great start. Simply opening a web page or running a decade-old Flash game brought the CPU under full load. Blame that all you want on Windows being bloated and poorly optimized, but I think even with Linux you will find yourself running out of RAM fairly quickly. While the machine can browse the web and play videos without too much trouble, open more than a few tabs in Chrome and the system will easily get bogged down. There were quite a few instances of seemingly simple websites taking a long time to load, even compared to some of my older laptops. Watching YouTube for the most part was fine, but it did stumble a few times watching full-screen videos, which should not be happening on a brand new laptop. You can certainly get by with this laptop if you're just going to be checking your email or doing some lightweight productivities such as Word documents or PowerPoint presentations, but anything more complicated than that is going to use all of the system's resources and give you a very sluggish experience. That is, if you even have enough storage for everything. The installation of Windows leaves only a little over 20 GB of free space for you to install additional software, documents, photos, etc. I'll let the Geekbench and Cinebench results speak for themselves. My first generation X1 Carbon and ThinkPad T430, both from over a decade ago, outperform it. While the low-power Celerons in these cheap budget laptops do benefit from being more power efficient than their predecessors from years past, I personally would rather have the better headroom offered by more powerful processors than something that struggles to manage even simple tasks. On a similar note, the use of eMMC storage means that read and write speeds are significantly slower than other laptops with SATA or NVMe drives. While I didn't feel like putting myself through the torture of trying to edit a video on this thing, I installed Handbrake to see how quickly it could do a video conversion. In this case, I downscaled a 5-minute video from 1080p to 720p, and in the process converted it to an MP4 file. While I'm sure with enough time you could do something like edit a basic video on this thing, it would be the ultimate test of patience. If you want to play games, retro games and lightweight titles are the limit of what this machine can handle. While there's a lot of things to criticize about this laptop, I would consider battery life to be the saving grace of most of these budget laptops. The battery life is actually pretty good, and in my uses, I got a little over 8 hours. If you want to tinker around with your devices or make upgrades to your computers, the Asus E210M and many laptops like it are not the machines for you. The battery is pretty easy to remove. The wireless card, surprisingly, is also a replaceable component. Most newer laptops solder them on. And a small board with one of the USB ports and the headphone jack can be removed if needed. Aside from that, very little can be replaced. The RAM is soldered on, so you are stuck with the barely adequate 4GB this machine ships with. The storage is soldered on, so if it fails, I hope your data is backed up. And mirroring my criticisms of newer ThinkPads, the charging port is also soldered on. The touchpad looks like it might be replaceable, but the keyboard appears to be held in with plastic rivets. So if it fails or you spill a liquid on it, you'll have to replace the entire top case, MacBook style. For a device that is this cheap and for how expensive replacement parts will likely be, it probably won't be worth repairing this. There is an M.2 slot available to add additional storage, but I don't see much of a reason to invest money into upgrading something like this when there are better options available. This brings me to why I have such a strong dislike for laptops like this, and think that low-end budget laptops are just a bad idea. They're essentially disposable. They're sold with specs that were low-end years ago and are already obsolete or close to it. Many people I know don't want to buy used hardware because of the perception that used equals old or outdated, but these shiny new laptops don't exactly have cutting-edge hardware either. The Celeron processor used in these machines has been on the market since 2019, and this isn't some new old stock laptop that's been sitting on a shelf for years. You can likely find a used business laptop from 2019 or even more recently for around the same price as what these budget laptops currently go for, and you'll be getting a lot more bang for your buck while you're at it. I can even find a mobile workstation laptop on eBay for about the same price as what many of these new budget laptops go for. Sure, it's bigger and heavier, but it will run laps and then some around a device like this. Even a premium laptop from 10 years ago is going to be more useful than a lot of these entry-level laptops. They'll last longer and they're actually designed to be repaired. Many used models you'll find have some degree of upgradability, so it's easier to add more RAM and storage to keep these machines up to date. As I talked about in some of my past videos, companies and businesses are constantly upgrading their equipment. So for a fairly low price, you can find some really good quality business laptops that are only a couple years old. And it's easy to find replacement parts and service manuals if something breaks. If you do buy a used laptop and something doesn't work or you aren't happy with it, return it and get your money back. Or do what I did with my very first laptop and attempt to repair it yourself. It may not be as difficult as you think. Most reputable second-hand sellers offer some degree of warranty or money-back guarantee for their products. Additionally, some vendors and even the original manufacturers of the laptops themselves offer refurbished units for sale, a practice that even Apple does, which promises the same experience and warranty as buying a brand new laptop without paying nearly as much. Some vendors also offer open box items that may have been returned or were display units, but are otherwise in brand new condition. Many people's budgets don't allow them to just plop down hundreds or thousands of dollars on a new machine, but that doesn't mean you have to settle for an inferior product. Whether you're buying for yourself, your parents or grandparents, a significant other, or whatever, it's a smarter investment to look at the used options available. Here's a few examples of laptops I've found for the same or less money than the Asus that I bought. They all have better specs than similarly priced Walmart specials, many come with warranties from the seller, and they can all be upgraded or serviced should something go wrong. Even if you don't use your computer for much besides basic tasks and checking your email, you deserve to get the best laptop that you can for what you're paying. and a good quality used model will still be getting the job done after 2 or 3 of these budget laptops have been buried in a landfill. What sort of used laptops are a good value? Stay tuned and you'll find out eventually. I'm working on an updated version of my best value ThinkPads video, and I look forward to getting that up soon. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.